a major challenge that was causing ripple effects throughout their whole life was their performance-based mindset and their performance-based thinking. And it's a difficult monster to unpack and overcome. And now I'm in my 40s and 50s, and this just doesn't work anymore. And it leaves people, really lost at that point.
But they found definitively what makes people happy.
We're honored to have Brant Hansen. Brant is a best-selling Christian author, nationally syndicated radio host, podcaster, and advocate for children through Cure International. His unique blend of humor, honesty, and deep faith has made him one of the most recognizable voices in Christian media today. He's the host of The Brant Hansen Show, heard on more than 200 radio stations nationwide, and co-host of the wildly popular Brant and Sherry Oddcast. Brant is the author of several influential books, including Unoffendable, Blessed Are the Misfits, Life is Hard, God is Good, Let's Dance. We're going to dive into a little bit of that today. Known for his humor, authenticity, and refreshing perspective on faith and life, Brant has become a trusted voice for people who feel overlooked, skeptical, or spiritually out of place. He's also open about living with Asperger's syndrome, using his platform to encourage others to embrace honesty, grace, and joy in a chaotic world. So, Brant, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Honored to meet you.
Yeah, likewise. I'm honored to dive in. I think can just continue the discussion we were just having around happiness and the lack of joy. I know Life is Hard, God is Good, Let's Dance came out in 2024, so relatively new.
Yeah.
But even the difference between 24 and 26, it seems like a lot has changed, even in that short amount of time. Not much time, but thinking about the world in 24 versus the world we're seeing it now in 2026, my perspective, and maybe I'm off with American and American men, is the joy meter has even gone down more. The joy meter is decreasing annually, so that there seems to be less joy in 26 than there was in 24. And I think that it is connected to a lot of different variables. Certainly we have political events, certainly we have global events, but one of them that just is increasing is the algorithm. The algorithm is something new that we've never faced in world history. It is unprecedented in the algorithm. One thing that it is great at is feeding you what you tell it to feed you, and we're seeing this great divide, no matter what topic it is, so it could be politics. We're in the hunting industry, so you see these great splits, and for the first time ever in my life, I see things that are fairly shocking because of the algorithm. So one thing that's kind of a new, I don't want to call it a trend, but there's a new thing that you hear occasionally now that I've never heard before in my life, and it's usually something like a mom is going to miss a mother's wedding, or an aunt is going to miss a niece's wedding, and it's because the algorithm has fed them in two different directions, and they just don't get along anymore. Mm-hmm. So all of that is kind of combining into a lot of symptoms, a lot of negative symptoms. How do you see it, and how do you see changes since that book came out?
Man, there's a lot there. So I'll start with this. When I agree with you on the joy thing. Joy, though, we got to define it, because some people just think it's like happy feelings, and that's not biblically where I'm coming from. And I talk about joy, and I'm sure it's not what you mean either. But joy is a pervasive sense of well-being regardless of circumstances. You can have that. Mm-hmm. Like even if you're grieving, you can have this deep lying sense of well-being that comes from actually trusting God, actually trusting him. Like if you actually trust him. So a lot of times we miss that people who are even people who are committed to the Bible miss that, because it's like you'll see the word faith like in the New Testament, like saved by grace through faith. It's like faith is a very stately word, and it kind of sounds good, like I've got faith or some. It's from the same Greek word that they also translate trust.
Hmm.
It's just trust. So when we talk about the Hall of Fame of faith, like in Hebrews, of all these people, Abraham, Moses, all these people, like it's the Hall of Fame for trust. Like these people actually trusted God. Like I actually don't have anything to worry about if I trust God. That's actually true.
Hmm.
What Jesus said, when he actually said, you don't need to be worried about tomorrow. He wasn't joking. Like this is something that you can actually have as you trust that whatever happens, God's going to make this make sense in the end. It's going to work out. So when Jesus took his disciples out onto the water, for instance, they get hit by this storm. Jesus was asleep. That was Jesus's idea to go out on the water. If you reread that story, he's like, "Hey, let's go out on the lake, you guys." Like that was his idea. He was testing their trust. They failed. They freaked out, and he calms the storm. But his point with them is like, "Do you guys realize that even if the ship goes down, you're still safe with me?"
Hmm.
I mean, do we realize that? Like ultimately, in this universe, we're actually safe with him, no matter what happens. Like in the end, we're okay. Like if we actually trust that, like men who trust that, you're playing with an incredibly strong hand in life.
Yeah.
Imagine not being afraid of death. Imagine being the one on your block or in your circle of friends who's not anxious. Like you're the rock. You don't get anxious because you know, like you're playing with this really strong hand. There's no better way to put it. It's like you've got the royal flush in your hand and you know it. So that when I talk about joy, that's what I'm talking about. You can actually become a more joyful person as you put your, and here's where you go with the algorithm thing. What you pay attention to determines who you're going to become. There is no avoiding that. So if my attention is on news stuff and opinion and watching clips of people I don't like doing stupid stuff, all like that will affect who I'm becoming. I'm going to become an immature, angry old man, probably
Hmm.
lonely. But that's your trajectory. You determine it based on what you're paying attention to today. So I have to pay attention to the right stuff. I have to, or I lose the plot myself, and then that'll lose the plot for my family and people who depend on me.
Yeah.
So to your point, if we're going to be joyful people, we cannot be our main attention cannot be spent on stuff that's determined by an algorithm. That just cannot be where we're putting our attention.
Do you see other reasons, or would you connect to other reasons that kind of like modern people are struggling so much with suffering
You mean struggling intellectually with suffering or actually suffering themselves? What do you mean? I'm sorry.
intellectually?
Oh, with intellectually suffering, struggling with suffering intellectually. Um, you're gonna have to like expand on that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think that my question is it feels like the battleground is the mind. In the battleground of the mind, we seem to be doing a less great job at navigating the hardships of life versus maybe how a society navigated those hardships of life 40, 60, 70 years ago.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're isolated. We're extremely isolated. I read this. It was so interesting. I just read this fairly recently, but it was like a diary of a home in Europe. I can't remember if it's rural France or somewhere in like the 1500s. It's like the 16th century. And it was just like a normal day. They noted 19 sets of visitors that came through the house. It was because you're constantly making wheels and deal. You're trading, this your wool for this and then that, and the other person. Then family comes over, and that it's sort of this interdependence. That's normal human life. What we have is a dystopia. Honestly, the lack of interaction, face to face, lack of interdependency. Like no humans have ever lived like this before. And no one, I believe that we have a mental illness problem as a result of it.
Mm.
Absolutely. So I see it all over the place. I live in a pretty affluent area here in Jupiter, Florida, but the isolation is like it's almost inversely proportional to, um, well, it's directly proportional to affluence. Isolation seems to be.
Yeah.
So that's why, like you mentioned, when we were talking about Uganda, you being in Uganda, you see people constantly in and out of each other's houses and they're outside hanging out together. That's the way it used to be here too, before we had air conditioning and all these isolating technologies. But that's good for humans. What we have is it's almost precision design, it seems like, to make people mentally ill. That's what we have.
That's such a good point. And it's hard to figure out like how we correct that as a community. How do we correct that as a city? How do we correct that as a country? We can I'm excited to hear like how you correct some of that, at a micro level in your own life, but you're so spot on. We think about even going to most every other country, when you travel almost anywhere else, you start to feel the increase in community and relationships. Whether you go, to Mexico or even Europe, you feel a lot
Yes,
more,
true.
connected, and you even start feeling like healthier. You're outside more, you're walking more. Your food is better from what goes inside of it. There was
Yep.
a there was like a super interesting study that came out last year, and the study was around individuals that had celiac disease. And
Hmm.
so like American individuals that claimed celiac disease and lactose intolerance that had changed their diet because of those two issues, uh, when they were eating by themselves quickly in front of electronics, they had extreme symptoms from celiac and lactose intolerance. So
Huh.
they're eating in front of lights. There's no friends around them, and they're eating their meal very quickly. And they took those same individuals, they had them start eating their meals around large groups of friends, with laughter over an
Huh.
extended period of
Huh.
time.
Huh.
And those individuals had no celiac or lactose problems. And all they did was like slow down and eat with friends and family. It's wild.
That's fascinating. You've probably read like the Malcolm Gladwell stuff where he talked about that community. I can't remember where it was, but they're very networked. It's in America. It was like in New York State, but they're all Italian or something. People live to be old, and
Hmm.
they've studied this in other cultures too. It's like, wait, they're eating a lot of. They're not eating the most nutritious food if you want to get jacked or something, but they're incredibly healthy because of the social networks that are established. That's what's going on. And that's
So
what we don't have. And so I think you do have to fight back on it. I can tell you one thing. I think a lot of this too comes from we view in America, we view food as fuel primarily.
I've noticed that if the gear you're using isn't reliable, it's much easier to back off early and quit. GoRuck's products hold up, and at Mountain Tough, rucking has become an essential aspect of our programming. Rucking combines cardio and resistance training, burning up to 3 times more calories than regular walking while strengthening your joints with very little impact. It also boosts VO2 max, bone density, and it makes it an efficient, science-backed way to improve overall fitness. The Rucker 4.0 is purpose-built for rucking, featuring elevated plate pockets to keep weight high and stable reinforced construction. GoRuck is offering 20% off their products for Mountain Tough Podcast listeners. All you need to do is use code Mountain Tough Community. That's MTNTOUGH Community when checking out at GoRuck.com. All right, back to work.
It's to serve this other purpose of like being productive or get it done so I'm not hungry so I can get back to work so I can. But that's not the case, as you mentioned. Even in Europe, you go out at 9 o'clock at night, everybody's outside at eating on the street,
Mm-hmm.
cafes and whatnot, and they know each other, and like that's just par for the course. And it's like this, it's a social thing. because it's not about not everything's about productivity in life. Again, our culture is not normal, where we're about everything has to be productive. We're building bigger, faster, stronger, richer, like all that sort of stuff. That's us. So one of the ways I've been fighting back against that, my wife and I, lately, is we've decided, you know what, we have to take this Sabbath thing seriously. So on Saturdays, we've been leaning into this. I'm not going to buy anything. That's just a general rule, because I'm going to not be productive, and I'm not going to be a consumer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to enjoy life, and I'm going to get together with people, and we're going to hang out and laugh. I'm going to have all day for that. I'm going to go for a walk, talk to God, but I'm going to prove that I'm not my job.
Yeah.
And when you do that, I mean, that's kind of the point of this. It's like you're undermining all of that machine thinking that can drive you crazy. Like you remind yourself, I'm a social being, I'm a spiritual being, I'm not a consumer, I'm not a producer, I'm not my career. I'm loved by God. I want to just spend time with him, appreciate what he's created, laugh. I like that's an incredibly great discipline, and I think it's designed for that purpose.
Yeah, it is wild. I did some projects earlier this year specifically around men,
Hmm.
and we with the Mountain Tough community we brought in groups of men, and we were able to quickly identify that a major challenge that was causing ripple effects throughout their whole life was their performance-based mindset and their performance-based thinking. And it's a difficult monster to unpack and overcome and dissect, because since we were, children, it was, run faster, get rewarded, jump
Right,
higher,
right,
get rewarded, show up
right.
early, get rewarded, stay late, get rewarded. And the hard thing about that is it kind of works. Like it navigates you successfully through middle school and then through high school, and then that performance mentality kind of
Yeah.
works through college. But with working with those men last year, it became very apparent that at a certain point it doesn't work anymore. And one milestone gets accomplished, and there's no sort of satisfaction, and there's a new one and a new one and a new one. And so working with these men from a very performance based culture, they're like, man, now I'm in my 40s and 50s, and this just doesn't work anymore. And it leaves people really lost at that point.
Yep. So I had mentioned to you before the show, about the Harvard longitudinal study about happiness. And they studied these guys. I mean, they literally picked guys in their 30s in the Boston area. And it was working class guys and also people who were going to Harvard. One of the guys they were studying was named John F. Kennedy, it turned out. He was one of the subjects as a
Wow.
young man. But they tracked with these guys the rest of their lives. And then their families, like, did every 6 months surveys about how life is going, their satisfaction, all that sort of stuff, all the changes of their life. There's people that were extremely well accomplished. There's guys who weren't so much. There's guys that barely accomplished anything. But they found definitively what makes people happy is relationships.
Mm.
The guys who did all the accomplishing, they did all the stuff, they hit the top of their field, they were titans of industry, minus relationships were miserable.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
then conversely, the people who didn't have all that stuff but had great marriages, or they just stuck it out, and they stuck it out with people, and they were surrounded by family and friends as they got older, like, they're happy.
So
So I just think we ignore that at our own peril. I also think, to get back to Sabbath really quick, I highly encourage that, because again, it was given to the Israelites who were coming out of slavery. Like, they had quotas to meet about building bricks, for instance. So God is effectively going, you're not that. That's not who you are.
mhm.
So in their system, they were slaves, but in our systems, we're entrepreneurs, or I'm this, I'm that, I did this other thing. Like, this is a way to break yourself of that. And it's actually a brilliant cyclical way of constantly reminding yourself, like, that's not who I am. That's not what I'm made for. I'm made for relationship with God and for other people. And that's where my happiness is going to come from.
So with you, like in Jupiter, affluent area, have you found ways to actually kind of be countercultural and bring a lot of relationships back into your life?
It's tough, but yes, it's tough. One thing on Friday nights, we'll have dinners here to kick off Sabbath now and just make it really fun. We're proactive with neighbors as well. We'll do a thing because one thing, even in American life, that we got wrong is even zoning.
Mm-hmm.
Because naturally in a neighborhood, what happens is a pub pops up in a neighborhood, a public house where people can go in the evenings and they see their neighbors and they play music and sing and they have a beer or whatever. But that's normal life. They have food, there's kids running around. That's a pub.
Mm-hmm.
But we've zoned it so that you can't have that. You got to literally get in your car and leave your neighborhood to go find, and there'll be a bunch of strangers around. That's not normal. So we actually have done something. We need to do it more, but we did it pretty regularly for a while, where we called it pub night at our house. And we just opened up our house like it's a pub for the neighbors. Told them, hey, it's pub night. Come on over. You can have drinks, you can have snacks, talk to neighbors, stay 10 seconds if you want, or stay 5 hours. And then we'll bust out the guitars and pianos and do, all the Eagles hits or whatever, 70s, 80s, 90s, like whatever people want to do. And people sing along, relax. But it's literally just called a pub night. But we're trying to undermine this isolated thing where we can.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes continual work because it won't happen otherwise. It just will not in this culture. It won't happen unless you make it happen.
Yeah, and isolation too is so obviously a great way to get taken out by the enemy. I mean,
Yes.
as Mountain Tough's a hunting brand, so we talk about this a lot. That like we know that the enemy prowls around us 24/7 like a lion, and if a lion is looking to take a gazelle down, he's going to take that isolated one that's away from the pack or on the edge of the pack. And that's kind of exactly what's happening right now in front of our eyes.
Yes. And I saw a headline today. I think the Free Press was marketing it, but it said, think for yourself, but don't think by yourself. Like that's actually a good line.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we need other people around us as a check on this so that we think clearly. And what happens is here's the worst thing that happens in isolation, I think. This is the absolute worst thing. It's not even getting addicted to pornography. It's not getting like other addictions. It's not wasting your time with video games. Those are all bad. Like just wasting your life, I should say. I'm not against video games, but you know what I mean? Like getting addicted. And
Yeah. Numbing.
the worst thing is the shame. And when you're isolated, you're going to feel this shame and it's going to chase you from God. This is the most typical male response. It's a human response. Like we get caught up in stuff. We do stuff we know is wrong. Well, that happens. The tragedy, though, is the shame that makes us stop talking to God.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to tell guys, look, the worst thing that could happen is that you walk away from talking to God. If you're caught up in something, this happens to humans. This happens. Paul called himself the chief of sinners, right? But you still should walk with him. He wants to partner with you in life. And you can talk to him about that thing. You can thank him for being merciful and patient with you. You can work on other stuff in your life. You can ask for wisdom on other, but you still talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
You never stop talking to him and walking. He's looking for partners in life. Like he wants to partner with you in your job, the stuff you're doing, your marriage or your girlfriend relationship, like whatever you're doing. He wants to partner with you. It's the best thing in the world. But the shame is what will stop you from pursuing that.
Mm.
So the isolation thing is awful because you want to have people around you like encouraging you to, no, keep walking with God. Help him, like let him help you with this thing. And there's other ways you can be growing up at the same time as he continues to work with you on this stuff. And what happens is, and I'm sorry, I'm filibustering here, but I just got one more thing to say on this.
10 years ago, we kicked off the Backcountry Preseason Prep program. It was a straightforward 80-day program built from thousands of hours testing with dedicated backcountry hunters. Now, with a full decade of real results, we've completely rebuilt it into Preseason Prep 3.0. We've added more aggressive metabolic conditioning, smarter load progression, tougher mental finishers, and even better programming to help hunters build that unbreakable grit for high country, heavy packs, and long days in rough terrain. It is still the same mission, getting you stronger and mentally tougher for the backcountry. It's just taken to the next level. After 10 years of honest feedback from hunters in the field, Preseason Prep 3.0 launches May 4th. If you are serious about this fall, it is worth checking out. Mountain Tough Podcast listeners always get 6 weeks for free on the Mountain Tough app. All you need to do to take advantage of that is use the code MOUNTAINPOD at checkout. That's MTNPOD on your monthly membership.
What happens is as you continue to talk to God, you'll grow up. And then stupid habits and certain stupid thoughts they start to actually become less of a problem. So it's by actually becoming a different sort of person that this stuff gets chased out of your life. It's not just ratcheting up your will every day.
Yeah.
So you cannot walk away from God. Keep talking to him. Even if you're caught up in something, don't let go of the rope. Let him continue to change you, and he's patient and he's good, and he will.
Yeah, the white knuckling just doesn't work, and it makes
Nope.
you more and more less likely to talk to anyone. I saw the same thing, around like depression and depressed thoughts. It's almost a similar concept where the world and many people we know are going through significant things. And so if you get depressed by something going on in your life, it's hard to talk to anyone about it because it feels tiny, even though it's traumatic to you. When you compare it to, a friend with cancer or stage 4 cancer,
Yeah.
you're like, well, my thing that feels big is not big. So I'm just going to hold it inside and isolate. And then it just starts eating you alive.
It does. A friend of mine totally corrected me on that because at one time I was saying, hey, I got this thing I'm struggling with, but in the end, it's not that big of a deal compared to what other people are going through. And he's like, don't say that. Don't compare it to your friend with cancer. I think that's even what I did. Like, I know people have cancer. Like, no, it's a big deal in your life. It's a big deal to the Lord. It's a big deal. So don't minimize it. And I think that's really true. One thing about the depression thing, I'm very prone to it. It's kind of like I have been since I was a little kid. It's part of my hardwiring, but it's gotten better. And the anxiety thing has gotten to be way less of an issue because I've been doing some things. And one of them is I speak to my depression. Like, and this is all over the Bible. There's places like where David writes, "Why are you so downcast, O my soul? Put your trust in God." Like,
Speaking to himself, yeah.
he's talking to himself. He does it repeatedly. But you have to be proactive about that. Like, I acknowledge I'm feeling down again. You know what? That's just how I feel sometimes. It doesn't dictate reality. So what? There's a lot of factors that go into that. Have I slept enough? Did my team get ripped off yesterday by the refs? There's all sorts of things that can happen if I put you in a certain mood. But Jeremiah does it in Lamentations. He can see his nation going down in flames, literally being destroyed. Like it's tantamount to us watching the news and seeing all this anxiety and bad stuff, legitimately bad stuff. He can see it happening. And as he's describing it, he says, "Yet I call this to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love for us, we are not consumed. His mercies are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness, O Lord." So he's literally saying, yet I see all this, and I'm not denying the reality of this, but I'm going to bring this to mind. I call it to mind about the fact that I don't need to be worried. But you have to remind yourself of that. You have to be proactively addressing how you're feeling in that, like feeling overwhelmed or anxious or depressed. Like, it's very good to remind yourself of reality. And that becomes a habit, which is incredibly healthy.
That's incredible. Yeah, and the affirmations, like you're sitting there giving yourself those words of wisdom that you've heard before, but you're able to read them back to yourself and just settle in them.
Right. That's like people think talking to yourself is mentally unhealthy. It's actually the most healthy thing you could possibly do when you're speaking wisdom to yourself, right? So that's why it's so smart too. And I didn't start doing this really in earnest until COVID or something, but the scripture memorization stuff, like I literally use an app where it gives you points and it has standings where you can like beat other people and stuff. But I've been memorizing scripture so that I have something to put my head, I have that headspace, even at a red light.
Hmm.
I'm like, I'll just start it in with the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. That's what it says in Psalm 23:1. I lack nothing. Again, I'm playing from a really strong hand. He makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside quiet water, all that whole thing. But I can rehearse this stuff in my head because I put it there so I can put my attention back on stuff that's actually going to be healthy and life-giving.
If we go back to that cornerstone, because you talked about the cornerstone of joy is trust and having true trust in the Lord. And we all have probably like experienced times in our life where we were saved and then we were walking in the Lord and we were growing in our faith and we had that trust, and we've all probably gone through seasons of life where we lost it a little bit. How do you articulate that in your own life where you can actually fully settle in the trust of what the Bible says is true, what the Bible says is real, and kind of locking into that?
I remind myself of what God's done for me in the past, how he's come through. Like he has not let me down. I believe that. I think Jesus is the only person who makes any sense in the world. That's the other thing too. He's so compelling. What are the alternatives? Who else do I trust? You're going to trust somebody. Tell me who's better than Jesus, and like, go for it.
Hmm.
I don't think there's a better alternative to Jesus. I think he's so compelling. I think he's trustworthy. He's proven that in my life. But here's another thing. You talked about like the phases we can go through spiritually. Like one, maybe for a while you feel on fire or something, or you feel God around and you're like singing songs and you feel his presence. And then maybe you go through a season where it's like, I don't feel any of that. Well, God didn't leave. And that's incredibly normal to not feel like he's around sometimes. There's an ebb and a flow to relational stuff. There's also an ebb and a flow to our own emotions, depending on other factors. But our emotions don't determine reality. And this is the best news I think I can share with guys, other than that God actually wants to partner with you.
Mm.
The best news is spirituality is not about emotions. Now, has the American church kind of made it that way? Yeah. Yeah, we provide emotional experiences and we create. I mean, there's a reason why we do songs a certain way. Like if you know music, like you build things into, and then the bridge, and then you modulate, and then everybody drops out, and then the drums come back in. Like we do that because it gives us goosebumps. All right, so it's not necessarily wrong, but the problem is a lot of guys think I must not be very spiritual because I really don't feel it like my wife does.
Hmm.
Or like maybe that guy, that worship leader does. He seems more touchy-feely than me or something. And I love telling guys, emotions are not spirituality. That's great news because they can come and go. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
you're not spiritual anymore. You know what spirituality is? And I love telling you this because you can tell all the guys in your sphere. It's loyalty.
Mm. That is
That's
helpful.
it. That's it, man. It's believing loyalty. So whether I feel God around or not, in fact, I don't most of the time. That part of that's my background, things I went through as a kid, trauma with religion and stuff. But it's like, look, but that doesn't determine reality. So I can still talk to God. I take the dog out in the morning, and he and I have a conversation about what's going on in life today, what we're doing together in life.
Mm.
And I can do that whether I'm feeling it or not. Well, that's what he's actually looking for from us. So I can't manufacture emotions, but this is great news because you know what? I can do loyalty. I'm actually good at that. That's faithfulness. This is what he wants. It's not the emotion stuff. The emotions can come and go. Emotions are fine, but man, I don't want you to think you're not a spiritual person because you don't have all this stuff, the feelings like other people seem to have.
That's
He's looking for faithfulness.
that's really helpful. Even thinking about it from the perspective of like a kid and a father and the the emotionally highs and lows in that kind of relationship. If you think of a great child and father relationship, how the
Yep.
child emotionally behaves is not the key as much as it is the loyalty from the father to the child and from the child to the father. For more than a century, America's sportsmen and women have led the way in paying for the restoration of wildlife, conserving habitat, and investing in the future of our natural world. This is a legacy built not on what we take ourselves, but on what we give back. That's the nature of conservation, paying it forward for the next generation. This is the reason Mountain Tough is a proud partner of Wild Sheep Foundation, an organization committed to keeping and putting wild sheep on the mountain. If you're not already a member, learn more today at wildsheepfoundation.org.
Yeah. And you want, as a father, you want to stay in contact. Like, you want to continue to walk with my kids.
Oh, yeah.
I got more good stuff to show them in life. Like, God's still my father. But the continuing to partner together is what he's looking for. Like, so we can do that. And I love sharing that because it's so much more empowering for guys, and it's such a relief for those of us who are more analytical or just aren't prone to expressing ourselves a certain way, like some people are.
What did your testimony look like?
Well, it's pretty ugly in a way. Um, my dad just passed away a couple months ago, so I'm a little freer to talk about things, but he was a pastor his whole life, and he was a mess.
Mhm.
Violent, philandering, serial marriages, domestic abuse. And I would watch him preach 3 times a week growing up.
Man.
The Bible, the Bible, the Bible, the Bible. And I didn't want to go home. So I literally thought, my brother and I both thought he was going to kill us and my mom. So they got divorced when I was in middle school. And then over my protests, they got remarried to each other and then divorced again
Mhm.
early in high school. Um, but he never stopped being a pastor. He had to have that attention. He just could not be on stage, man. He's just got to do his thing. He had to be the center of attention. It was very narcissistic. So I'm a believer in spite of that. I love the way Jesus deals with hypocrites and Showtime faking.
Mhm.
He calls it out. And I've seen through some of the stuff like you have, sometimes you see works of God say overseas, like I've been working with this hospital network called Cure, and we don't have to get into it, but I will say that it's the best expression of Jesus I've ever seen, and it's so real. It's not Showtime. It's actually kids being healed in the name of Jesus, and people are being served. They don't have to pay anything for their life-changing orthopedic or neural surgeries. We do thousands of life-saving neurosurgeries just at one hospital in Uganda every year. Thousands.
Dang.
And it's free. We pay, like, believers pay for it. Believers do the surgeries. Believers clean up afterward. Believers run the hospital network. It's all about Jesus from start to finish. Like, when I see that stuff, I'm like, yes, I'm in. So um, my skepticism about everything in life being raised the way I was has chased me back around to Christianity because I think Jesus is the only one who calls out sin and actually does something about it. I think
Mm.
he has a very realistic view of reality, honestly, and unlike anyone else I've ever read or experienced.
That ought to be brutal for you, though, to witness what you witnessed as a child and then come back around to the Bible after experiencing everything that was going on in your household. I mean, that ought to be an uphill
Yeah,
battle.
I think it's the grace of God. I tasted enough, like it, where the Bible says, "Taste and see that the Lord is good." Like, if you do experience Him, that like I tasted enough that I realized it's true. And I'm so thankful for that. And then I've experienced it throughout my life. I'm still growing. To be a disciple, you're always learning. That's what it means to be a disciple. Like I'm always learning stuff. I'm always in learner mode. I don't know everything. I'm learning stuff, but I'm also practicing the way of Jesus more and more, like learning to love my enemies, doing that, like praying for people who drive me crazy or people I see in politics or something that's not my team,
Mm-hmm.
praying God's blessings for them by name. Well, I'm growing up and I see how it works. Like everything Jesus says makes your life better. It's actually an easier way of living. People think it's harder. It's not. He even said, take my yoke. It's easier and lighter, and you'll find rest. Like forgiveness is hard. I tell people, yes, forgiveness is hard, but you know what's harder?
Unforgiveness.
Living a life of unforgiveness. Jesus' way is better. So as I've learned more and more about how practicing his way, like actually doing the stuff that he told us to do, actually makes my life better. I'm less anxious. I'm less angry. I can have more fun. I don't fear death. Um, I'm content. Like these are all very good things, and I want more people to have that, including a lot of people who had a salvation experience but didn't actually get taught to do the Jesus stuff because it's not impossible to learn this way of life, and it's a great way of life.
You also have dove into the topic quite a bit and written on it on the topic of offense with your book,
Yeah,
the Unoffendable Life. And that also seems to be an increasing societal problem of offended
huge,
over anything.
huge, and it's awful in one way because the church I don't think has been taught rightly about it. Like I was taught wrong growing up. I was taught that, and this a lot of people who are listening now or watching this or whatever, they're going to be like, "What? You can't be serious." And I was just asked to hear me out. But we're taught that there's a thing called righteous anger that we're supposed to have. So there's unrighteous anger. We should get rid of that anger, but we should keep the righteous anger. I was taught that. I thought that was true. The problem is it's not in the Bible. God's anger is righteous. There is righteous anger in the Bible, to be sure, God's anger. Jesus is sinless. Like his anger is righteous. God is sinless. We are not told to have righteous anger. We're not told it's even possible for us. We're told to get rid of anger before the sun goes down. So when people pop that scripture, the one scripture people will hang their hat on to go, no, I should be angry about everything, all this stuff. Like there's this, there's that. It says, in your anger, do not sin in Ephesians. I'm like, yeah, you're right. It does say that. What's the rest of the verse, though? In your anger, do not sin. So you memorize that part of the verse, but what's the rest? And people don't know. The rest of the verse is, in your anger, do not sin, comma, and be sure to get rid of your anger before the sun goes down.
Mm-hmm.
But people only memorize that first half because they wanted to justify their anger. Later in the same paragraph, it says to get rid of all anger. Anger resides in the lap of fools, it says in the Old Testament. Like every time anger is discussed in Proverbs, it's related to foolishness and destruction. So, what we're actually supposed to do with our anger is forgive people. And if people are like, well, I have to be angry to address injustice, I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't. In fact, you'll address injustice better without it. That's why we don't want our police angry. We don't want judges and juries angry. We don't want the military acting out of anger. Anger clouds your judgment. It doesn't enhance it. So if people are like, well, then what am I supposed to do about injustice? Like, you're supposed to do something about it,
Hmm.
not just pat yourself on the back for tweeting or getting angry about it. Like, but we've been taught wrong. We've been taught that being angry itself is righteous. So we can watch the news and get worked up about a billion things which are genuinely awful, genuinely evil things are in the world. We're actually supposed to do something about it. And then we're supposed to practice this way of forgiveness because we know we're in a spiritual battle, not against flesh and blood. So in the releasing of that anger, you'll find your life is better and longer. And one last thing about this, speaking from a hunting standpoint, for which your crowd may get better than I do, but
Yeah.
animals have fight or flight responses just like we do. That's what anger is. It's a response to perceived threat. Like we're not getting our will accomplished, something bad's going to happen. Like it's a threat. So we get the fight or flight response in our body. And we're taught as guys, we're taught, well, that's masculine even to be angry all the time. Like it's not, it'll kill you. So the fight or flight response in a zebra lasts about 30 seconds. But you get the cortisol hit, you get the adrenaline hit, you get the blood pressure changes, your certain organs will start to shut down.
Yeah.
Like there's all this stuff that's huge physiological reaction that happens for fight or flight, but it's over quickly for animals. But humans are the only creatures on the planet that can keep it in their system for years
Man, that's wild.
or borrow threat from next week that hasn't even happened or won't happen. Animals don't do that. The birds of the air aren't borrowing trouble from tomorrow, or the zebra is not thinking about a lion that could hit next year.
That
Humans
is,
do that. We stay ticked off from stuff that happened 10 years ago. Well, that cortisol in your system will make you fat. It will break down the collagen in your skin. It will age you. It will break down your heart health. It will cause heart disease. We know this. And Americans suffer from this chronic stress stuff because we're taught. I mean, if the church isn't even taught right about this, what chance does the rest of the culture have? We think, oh, we're supposed to be angry just about different stuff. It's like, no, no, no. Our way is supposed to be a different way of life where we put away anger and bitterness. We don't dress up bitterness as righteous. We
mm,
put it away. We're the ones who are the non-angry, non-anxious presence in the world. That's who we're supposed to be. It's a much healthier way to live. You'll live longer and you'll look younger and you'll stay stronger. It has all these physiological downstream effects that are wonderful. But again, Jesus' way of life, right? He's telling us this because it's for our own good.
it's insane that a thought in our mind can make our body so sick that
Yes,
we can go into surgery from it. We can die from it. We can,
die, right?
you think about like stomach ulcers, gastro issues, back surgeries. All of that can at times come from a thought in our mind. That is crazy. Mountain Op supplements keep you going steady. I've personally been on their Yeti pre-workout for clean energy without jitters, and their Hydrate to stay topped off during long days when you need those electrolytes. Creatine and protein are a staple for me for building and bouncing back. Plus, they have no junk, just real fuel. It's simple, reliable stuff that helps you push when it counts. Get 20% off Mountain Ops supplements at mountainops.com using code MOUNTAINTOUGH. That's MTNTOUGH. All right, now back to work.
To your point, there's a guy who wrote the book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. That's what I was just referencing.
Hmm.
It's literally called that. He's a primate neuroendocrinologist from Stanford. He's probably the top endocrinologist in the world. But he wrote about why zebras don't get ulcers. It's because only humans get stress ulcers. No other creatures do.
They shake it off and move on.
Yeah, they know what it's for. They're not thinking, but we hold on to grudges and we stay angry about stuff and we borrow trouble from next week. All this stuff Jesus told us in his wisdom and love for us, don't do that. Why? Because he loves us. So this is a ticket to a better life where we don't have to suffer like that. Like, why not opt into this? So yeah, I could go on about that forever. But man, if people don't believe me on this, go ahead, try to find it where we're supposed to stay angry in the Bible. Like anger happens, that fight or flight response happens, but we're supposed to get rid of it. It's for our own good. We're supposed to practice this way of forgiveness and engage in justice and stand up for what's right and defend the vulnerable, but not out of anger, but
Hmm.
because it's the right thing.
Yeah, I have a couple thoughts there. One is the book Bait of Satan by John Bevere, in the early 2000s was so helpful to me because the idea of it being bait, and
Yeah.
I think about, like, again, as a hunting brand, it's like if a person in Montana or Wyoming or Idaho or Alaska, British Columbia, certain states allow baiting for black bears, and it's like to get the black bear to walk into bait for a hunter to harvest it, and it's like, man, that's the same thing that the enemy's doing.
Totally.
But it's interesting because, like, we can't just blame it on the enemy because we had to participate. So our flesh participated, and then the enemy took us out. But he didn't take us out without us participating. And so it's like, yeah, it is the bait of Satan, but we are setting our own bait and then walking into it when we hold on to these offenses.
Yeah. Well, don't do it. Stop it. And so I would encourage people who are listening now, like, guys, you don't have to be this way. And it is not strong to be angry. I'm sorry. We think it's like that's being a man. No, no, no. Toddlers get angry, right? The
Mm,
ability though to go like even to turn the other cheek is not weakness. It's actually saying you don't dictate my next move. What you expect is for me to hit you back. You're trying to get like you don't tell me what to do. I'm free to do what I want. I respond differently. Somebody's deliberately being offensive, you forgive them.
mm,
That's strength. The other thing too, I have to tell you, like if you think it's masculine to be angry, your wife doesn't. She doesn't want to live with an angry guy. Your kids don't. She wants to feel safe with you. You're here to provide security. That's the whole point. You're to be the keeper of the garden. Like you're to defend these people who are your garden and your sphere of influence. Anger makes them feel vulnerable. Like so now you're the threat in the garden. You're supposed to be the keeper, the protector. So the idea that anger makes you more masculine, it makes you less attractive. Being a man of action who doesn't do it out of anger but takes care of business, your wife will find that to be pretty attractive, actually.
mm.
It's not the anger.
Yeah. Well, the listeners on this show know I've talked about it quite a bit over the last couple of years, but I have been involved over the last 3 or so years in a lot of counter trafficking work. So we're doing a lot of counter trafficking work in the United States, and there is a couple other groups similar to the group that I'm with, and we're we are, actively hunting bad guys that go after children, and we do that in a variety of different ways, and sometimes we collaborate with other groups. And there's a group in this country led by a guy that we always talk about, people that like smell like Jesus. Like this guy like
Mm.
smells like Jesus. I always talk about, like, my grandmother, who was on fire for the Lord and was so instrumental in my life. Like she was a smell like Jesus type person. Well, there's a guy that leads one of these groups in the counter trafficking space that is like that. And, his full-time mission is hunting bad guys that go after children. But I've been in several briefings with him, and we're briefing for different operational things, and he multiple times has kind of stopped and also made sure that we prayed for the bad guys we were going after.
Nice.
And it's like, man, like he's got it. He's got the full picture captured where like, yeah, he is a believer in justice. He's devoted his whole entire
Of
life to it
course.
now.
Right. Right.
But he also is not holding bitterness and resentment and anger after like someone you really want to be angry with, someone that's going after children.
Right.
But he sees the full picture, and it always just blows me away.
Well, that's brilliant. It's a brilliant way to live. And think about it too, if you question the brilliance of this. So trafficking kids is really evil. Should we be mad about that? Most people go, yeah. And I get it. It is evil. Stop it. Thanks for what you're doing, by the way. Like the stuff that I've seen, there's stuff in other countries to be mad about. There's stuff I can look at my Twitter feed right now. There'll be 15 legitimate things that are awful. I saw a guy that was sentenced to jail in Belgium today because he spoke the truth about some policies, and the judge even acknowledges the truth, but you can't say that. Like we don't like that point of view. You're going to jail. Like that's something to get mad about. Okay, so there's 100 things to be mad about, and if you don't have 100 things, I can give you 100 more on top of whatever you got. Is the idea that you're just going to stay that way till the grave? Are you going to be led by anger all the way to the end because there's so many evil things? Or is there some different way to live where you can be like the guy you're describing who's actually doing something and doing it well because his mind is not clouded? Like it actually helps you in what you do. My son was an intel agent in the military. Now he's in med school, but he didn't do his job out of anger when he was deployed. Like he was cunning. Then he did his thing to protect people. So I'm a big fan of that.
It is fascinating just because the design and what Jesus is telling us to do is because it is the better plan. And it as like
Yeah.
as humans we have a hard time believing that, even with like timing of things. And he's up there being like, bro, I got you. Like Saturday's better than Thursday.
So I run into this a lot because people have this theology where being saved means you save something, you accept Jesus, and that means when you die, you go to heaven. I'm like, that's not what Jesus was talking about. So he's talking about doing the things I've commanded you to do, like the Great Commission, teach them to obey the things I've commanded you. If you do these things, if you put my words into action, you're like someone who builds their house on a rock. If you don't put it into action, you're like somebody who builds their house on sand. It's the stuff he told us to do over and over. It's the doing of the stuff that will help us be disciples and know the truth, and then the truth will set us free. But people will think, well, that's legalistic. It's not legalistic. This is a way to freedom. Like it's all part of the eternal life that starts now, that he's given it to us. Like, but this is that way of life. We're practicing it. We're doing it now. But loving enemies, praying for people, putting off anger, blessing people who curse you, man, there's so many benefits to this. It's just his way is brilliant.
It is. Well, Brant, we're at the end of our hour. In closing thoughts, what would you kind of say to that guy out there listening right now, that guy that's driving or at work or at the gym?
I just thought of something. I'll tell a very quick sports story.
Yeah.
Because I just love this. I'm an Illinois grad, University of Illinois, and years ago we had the number one team going into the NCAA tournament, and we should have won the national championship. That was the projection. We played Arizona in the Elite Eight, and I watched this game with my son and my wife, and we stunk. We could not hit any shots. It was very frustrating to watch this game. The refs were terrible. They ripped us off. Our coaches were stupid. They made bad substitution patterns, bad shot selection. The crowd was even annoying me. The announcers were terrible. Like the whole thing was just making me tense. Well, Arizona hits this shot with like 3 minutes left to go up like 16, I think. So there's less than 3 minutes left, and Illinois is down by 16. The season is over. And so I said, that's it, I'm done. And I get up to walk off, and my wife's like, would you quit being a baby? Like, your son just wants to watch a game with you. I'm like, okay. I sat back down, like, let's watch him lose. I literally said that. And then we got a steal and hit a three, and then got another steal or another turnover, hit a layup, got, a foul. They missed the free throw. We hit a three, and we wind up tying it at the buzzer and then winning it in overtime. Now, I've watched this. Maybe you have a similar game where your team came back and won the game in dramatic fashion. If you ever rewatch the game, like I have on YouTube 1,000 times, it's so awesome. Like, gives you goosebumps every time. It's like this incredible comeback. But I ask people, like, do you think when I rewatch that game that I'm just as anxious and bothered?
No.
No, of course not. Right? Why?
The end.
Right?
Yeah.
We're playing from, if you trust him, you're playing from a really strong hand. I mean it. You know how this ends. You can have a sense of humor about things. You can have a cool, calm, collected way of being. You can forgive people. I mean,
It's
strong
so
hand.
good. It's so good, and it's so helpful because he has to be kind of watching us many times, being like, I know the end. Like, why are you causing stomach ulcers with worry? You're down there just squandering some time with fear and anxiety.
Right. Right.
I think,
And then so, like, when the disciples are out on the boat, that's why I was like, hey, what'd you guys do with your trust? You said you trusted me, but then you freaked out. So I don't know where the trust went. Like, he's like, do you not realize this ends well? Do you not realize you can trust me? Trust me, trust me, trust me. He says this over and over and over and over. It's trust me. So,
and fear not, fear not, fear not.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, strong hand. You're playing with a strong hand.
Oh, and you can see it looking backwards too. I mean, we can look back and see where God has just provided. And then we look forward and we get consumed with worry. It's the same thing as like being in the game versus watching it on YouTube.
So I suspect that you and I are other people who trust God with this in our halting ways. Like, we've got a long way to go, of course, maturity wise. We're always learning. But I think people who trust the Lord in the end will look back and go, you know what? I actually never needed to be worried. I never actually needed to be worried. Bad stuff happened, yes, but ultimately, everything he did was good for us. We didn't realize it at the time. But I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah. 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 And I don't want to look back and realize that I just like squandered so much power and authority in Jesus, or I don't want to look back and realize like I was only 10% in the kingdom and not 95% in the kingdom.
Right. I remember seeing, I think it was an Iron Man movie. I can't remember what was going on. This happens all the time in the movies, but he was up against the wall and he was about to be killed by the bad guys. And he's making jokes, like legitimately funny jokes. Well, he gets rescued or whatever at the last second, but he didn't know that was coming. But it's just like, that's the Avengers, right? That's comic book stuff. But if you do know how this ends and you know it ends well, you can have that sort of peace of mind where it's like you can be that guy who's somehow calm and collected and still not anxious, even under fire. Somehow.
Yeah. Well, Brant, thank you. That was amazing. Appreciate you and appreciate you being on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for asking me. I'm honored. I appreciate looking up what you do too. I appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.